Welcome to Be a Voice. I'm Rick Carpenter, and this is Usula Media. Thanks for joining me today. Today's show, we're continuing on with our theme this year of switching gears, talking to people who have switched gears in their lives and continually do so in order to better themselves and better their worlds. And today I'm sitting here with a good friend of mine and somebody who's a person in long-term recovery as well, and the founder and the president of Restore and Recover. Right?
Restore and Recover.
I screwed that up on there, Chris, there. I'm sitting here with Chris Willis. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Britt. What's up?
Not much. How are you?
Good.
And the funny thing is on the way over here, I'm like, Restore and Recover, so simple. And I don't know why the hell I went Restore and Recovery. Just blew that right off the bat.
Yeah.
So, so since we're talking about it, what is Restore and Recover?
All right. So Restore and Recover is we manage sober living homes and recovery houses in Philadelphia. We have a few. We have like a men's recovery house program in Germantown. We got 3 houses over there. And then we have like a whole other sober living program in like Harrowgate, Kensington area. We have 5 houses over there. And that's it. That's what we do. Obviously we try to work with other organizations in the community and kind of like, interact with all the other things that are going on because Kensington it's Kensington, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So right now you have 8 homes.
Yes.
8 homes. And do you classify all those homes as sober living, or do you classify them as recovery homes? Or
no. So that's the difference, right? So the difference with a sober living is it's for someone who might be a little farther along in their recovery. Like our recovery house program is we have like a live-in manager there and all that type of stuff. And the sober living homes are obviously like a different thing.
So you have transitional homes, you have medical,
Yes.
you have MAT homes where you accept
We
that?
do. We accept MAT. Yes.
You do. So MAT, which would be the medical assisted, which for people who are coming out of treatment or off of opiate use disorder or MOUD, whatever you want to call it.
Correct.
Are those homes integrated with people who are sober, or are they all one home?
So they're integrated. Because over in Germantown, we have it kind of set up where we have like 3 houses and we can kind of like shuffle people around as we need to. Mm-hmm. And in the sober living homes, it's kind of expected that if you have a year or more of recovery that you can kind of make your own decisions, right? So, if you tell us that's something you can't deal with, maybe we can place you somewhere where we don't have anyone on MAT at that house. But, if we can't, then we'll refer you to somewhere else.
And I always find that very interesting because when you think about MAT, you think about somebody who's on that. It's not like they're utilizing any type of paraphernalia. It's
Sure.
not like they're utilizing anything that's going to jeopardize somebody. The only thing is the stigma that comes along with things such as Suboxone.
Yes.
Because Suboxone on the black market is basically like, using heroin.
Yeah, exactly. And there's, obviously like there's this stigma attached to it. And, some people in like 12-step recovery or other things like may feel a certain way about it. But we're not like a program that like pushes MAT.
Right.
If someone comes to us and they need help and we have a space for them and we think that they fit in our program, we'll take them. But we have plenty of abstinent people. We started out with all abstinent houses. Yeah.
So with 8 homes, do any of them come directly out of treatment, or have they been in a sort of a little bit longer in recovery for your homes?
So in the sober living homes, typically, no, they don't come directly out of treatment. Unless, sometimes we'll get like a special call for, someone who's been in like long-term treatment, or, been to some kind of halfway house or something like that. But usually if someone is coming straight out of a 30-day treatment center, that would only be accepted at our recovery houses in Germantown.
So, let's take it a little bit back, peel the layers back a little bit more,
Yeah,
because
sure.
we could talk about Restore and Recover. We could talk about the 8 homes. We could talk about that. But, the road to getting there,
Yeah.
for you to get there,
Yeah.
is always the road that I like to see what happens or how it unfolded,
Right.
or the road that you went down, because you consider yourself a person in long-term recovery.
Sure.
How many years do you have?
9 and some 10 in June.
10 in June.
Yeah.
This coming June is 10 years.
Yes.
Sober.
Sober.
No MAT.
Yeah,
nothing.
and just to like clarify, like I don't care what anyone else does. Like I just so happen to be abstinent from all substances for 10 years in June.
That's amazing. That's that's admirable. I mean, people have a hard time getting through dry January. They complain about that. Like, oh my gosh, I need a drink. You know what? Oh my gosh, hand me the needle. You know what the hell?
Yeah.
That's one of those things. It's like, come on, people.
Yeah.
If you can't get to, and that's 30 days, 31 days when you think about it. And, treatment anymore isn't 30 days. It went to 28. It is at 21 now. It's like that microwave reheat,
which is to me is insane. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. I needed to be in a place like before I entered the real world. Like I needed to be in like a safer place for a longer period of time than that. It's just me. Some people come out and do great, but
I had a smile when you said the real world.
Yeah.
Because when you are in active addiction, there really isn't a real world.
No.
There's a lot of blurred lines.
Yep.
And there's a lot of like reality that doesn't really happen to anybody else, only to you.
Yeah.
So it's really funny because I don't think people really get that. They're like, oh, the real world. Well, because to us, prior to going into recovery, we never were able to function in the real world. That's why we were people with substance use disorders.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You, how many years were you in active addiction?
From the point that I first used any substance ever until the point that I stopped was 15 years. But from the point that I was really addicted to something like opiates, through the point that I stopped was like 10 years.
And that's funny because, we look at it and I talk about it too, that, people know the fact that like I did heroin and opioid addiction was a huge part of my life.
Sure.
But they forget that like it started with the drinking.
Yeah.
And the smoking the dope and
blowing
the lines and all the little things that led up to that.
Right.
But everybody thinks about that last thing you sort of did. So, and I wasn't really discriminatory on what I used.
Me neither.
If it was put in front of me, I'd be like, okay, cool. Except for meth. I really couldn't stand meth.
Yeah. I tried it. Yeah. I tried it a couple times. But
we could be discriminatory there, huh? Discriminatory drug addicts. You know?
I think it depends on your brain. You know what I mean? Like some people just get really into uppers, and that wasn't me. Like I got really into opiates. That was just how my brain was wired. So,
it was wired a certain way because you used opiates for a purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
And people forget that too.
Yeah.
So and yours wasn't just like you used opiates. Like you were hardcore, man.
I got hardcore. Yeah, eventually.
You got to a point of hardcore. When I say hardcore, I'm not talking like, you were going to work and coming home at 5:30 and sitting in your house all night long. You were like, people talk about Kensington. People talk about the streets of Kensington, how bad it is, and it's bad. Yeah. I mean, I'm out there, on a daily doing the outreach and distro and stuff like that. But it's a little bit more tame than the streets of where you were running for quite some time.
I would say now, currently, probably, yeah. I don't know. Maybe ever. Yeah, no, maybe you're just right on that.
You were running the streets of
Camden. Yeah.
And people don't really know about Camden.
Yeah. And the thing is about Camden is like they cleaned it up a lot. But back in this time, it was the Wild West. It was insane.
And you ran the streets.
I was out. I was just out there.
You were unsheltered?
Yeah. I bounced back and forth. I might be living in an abandoned house and then maybe in this shelter or that shelter or then back to jail for a little bit. And then, I went up to North Jersey to rehab for 30 days and then I came back and then, so I bounced around a lot. But yeah, no, I was unsheltered out there. Yeah, for sure.
How long was that?
A couple years.
It's a huge part of your story, man.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of your story that some people probably don't even know. They look at you and they say, oh my gosh, look at him. He's doing well. He has 8 recovery homes. He has a great job. He's, he's put together, It's a huge part of your story.
I mean, like outside of like recovery settings, how often do you get to ask anyone what their story is,
Yeah.
So.
And there's power in your story.
Sure.
You know, I mean, anybody who's been unsheltered, you know, there's power there because that's a special person to be able to bounce back from something like that, especially one who's been out there in active addiction all those years.
Yeah.
And like you said, it was like the Wild West. Camden's not a pretty place to begin with.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Let alone to be unsheltered, and being unsheltered back in, you know, 2012,
Yeah.
2013.
Yep.
So, you know, and, you know, for myself, when I was at my lowest, which, you know, was for many years and many different times, you know, everybody always asks about a bottom. And I'm like, I really don't think there is a bottom. I think it's sort of just when you're ready, you know, everybody's bottom is different. There's no one aha moment for me.
Yeah.
There were several aha moments. But like, what led, and this is always in my head intriguing, because when I was in my height of my active opiate use addiction, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, how am I going to afford my $1,300 a month rent? I'm going to have to live in like a $500 a month house somewhere and move my, you know, and that's what my brain was thinking, you know, like I was going to downgrade and everything.
Well, that's what I did.
And that's what you did. You downgraded to the streets.
Yeah.
How does that happen? Did you ever put your finger on that and say, this is how it happened?
Yeah. I mean, it kind of, you know, so like the more you get like deeper into addiction, the more things you like cut off from your life, the more people you cut off from your life, the more people don't want you around. You know what I mean? And if you go deep enough, eventually, you know, you're like, you know what? It would be easier just to live right next to the set. And it would also be easier to just not live. You know what I mean? Like all these people who want me to stop doing what I'm doing, well, they don't have to be bothered anymore because I just won't be around. You know what I mean? So it's just easier to just go do your own thing.
And that's crazy to have that mind frame to think to yourself, it's easier to be away from the people who care about you.
Yeah. Well, because it's like they have expectations, right? As they should. If you have family members or friends or coworkers or whatever, right? Like you have some sort of responsibility to the people in your life. And it's just easier to not have any responsibility. Don't be accountable to anyone. Because why would you? Like, I want to do what I want to do. So,
and as a person with an active addiction, they smother you. It's like, get the hell away from me. Leave me alone. I'm fine. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's always.
I know what I'm doing. I'm going to live on the streets of Camden.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, I know what I'm doing. Yeah, like I'm good. You know, and then, you know, you get out there and it's nutty. And then the crazy thing about it is like your brain is so warped. Like the wiring in your brain is not working correctly. So like the more you survive, the better you think you are. Right? You're just like, yeah, no, it's nutty out here. This guy's dropping dead. People are getting shot. This is happening. That's happening. I've been to jail, this, that. And you're just like, yeah, but like I'm going through all this stuff and I'm doing the thing that I want to do. So that means I'm good at it.
And I'm still standing. And that's a good thing.
Yeah. And I'm still, like.
And let's face it, man. When people talk about people in addiction, I say, you know what? You can't bullshit a bullshitter.
Yeah.
You know, we're the best.
Yeah.
Because that's what we really do. We bullshit people.
Right.
You know, you know, we sort of smell our own, so we know how we can react to other people, and we know how we get over on people. So that's a different mind frame. Sure. I'm not going to tell you, people think that people that have substance use disorder are dumb. I would tell you they're probably the most intelligent people out there.
100%.
Because of the way they can survive.
Yep.
Because it's an instinct. That's survival.
Yes.
Being on the streets for any amount of times is survival.
It's definitely survival.
And it's an instinct. It's an instinct that people have, and you have to have that instinct. So, you know, if you could take it all the way back and peel that back to your very first time that you were on the street, the first night, do you remember that?
I don't know if I remember the first night. I can remember the first week that I went out there permanently, and I ended up, I don't know, I ran into some girl, and she happened to have like an abandoned house that was behind this like old abandoned car wash or whatever. And, you know, she was just like, yeah, like you can come stay with me or whatever. And like,
come hang out in my abandonmenium.
Yeah, just, you know, whatever. And then, you know, she'll go do what she does and, you know what I mean? Bring back some dope, and I'll go do whatever I do and bring back some dope. And, you know, I just slept on the floor in that abandoned house. And, you know, that probably lasted for a little bit. And then, you know, I ran into some other person on the street and they had something better going on. And then I went to their abandoned house, or, whatever happens,
Isn't it weird that when you're on the streets like that, like you can bounce around and then you have these friends
Yeah.
that, you can hang with and be with, but then like, you lose concept and sight of everything else.
Yeah.
And you don't really know, things become askew. Once again, those lines become blurred and
100%.
It's a crazy thing. Do you ever see any of these people that you bounced around with?
Today, no, but I have. So once I came to Kensington to get sober, a lot of those people, I'm not going to say a lot, but, a handful of those people ended up coming to the same place that like I got sober at. And, most of them didn't stay sober or didn't, but like, yeah, I ran into people for sure.
So over in Camden, like you were buying over there, they have, is it open air like it is in Kensington or is it, and you could get anything over there you wanted to, just like you could here?
Anything.
You get rock, you get hard, soft, all that?
Anything.
So, and you were in the height of an opioid addiction then?
Yep.
Were you doing it injectable or were you doing sniffing?
Injectable. By the end, yeah, injectable. And then it was, then it was just a mix of things, right? Because it's like, all right, like this is rough, like getting all this money, doing this and that. So, all right, I'm going to get on the methadone clinic. But like now it's like you go to the methadone clinic and then like you take some Xanax from, you buy some Xanax from somebody there. Right. So now you're doing that. And then you got some money left over. So you go get some crack and smoke that. And, it's just kind of like whatever happens. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yep. It's a domino effect.
Yeah.
It really is. I know that very well. You do whatever you can to stay here, and then you do whatever you can to go back here, and then get back up here.
That's it. Yeah. But I mean, I would say if there was no point where I wasn't on opiates though. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny. You said something that might strike people funny if they caught it, because I didn't, and I sort of snickered because I know what you meant, but some people may not. You made the comment that you went from Camden to Kensington to get sober, to get clean.
Usually
when it was funny that you said it, because normal person listening was like, what the hell is that? You went to Kensington to get clean?
That doesn't make sense. Like, to almost nobody on earth.
Yeah.
What
does that mean? How does that happen?
Okay. So I'm in Camden. I'm doing whatever I'm doing out there. And at some point I was staying in a shelter. And I had tried to I went to rehab, came back, I'm staying in a shelter. And, I meet this kid there who, asked me if I wanted to go to a meeting. And I said yes, because I was I was doing my okay, I'm on the methadone clinic right now. I'm going to try not to take Xanax or smoke crack. You know what I mean? So I'm just going to so I had nothing going on, right? Because I'm not running around the stores stealing. I'm not working on the set. I'm not doing anything. So I'm like, yeah, all right, let's go to a meeting. I don't have anything else going on. So we go down to this place on 5th Street. And it's like this little recovery clubhouse place called The Last Stop. And yeah, he just took me there randomly, and I liked the vibe of it. There were some cool people there, whatever. And, I just kind of started going there. So every day on my way to the clinic, I would stop in there, 'cause they had an early morning meeting, a small early morning meeting, and they had coffee. So I would just stop in there, whatever. And then later on down the road, the guy who owned the place, this guy, Eddie Z, who you can look him up. I'm not going to even get into the Eddie Z lore and all that. But
Eddie Z is a legend.
Yeah. Kensington legend.
He absolutely is. And he's back.
Yeah. And he's back. He's back in Kensington. Mm. So this guy, he would see me coming around. So he would always try to, his thing is he just likes to recruit people into whatever he has going on, right? So he was like, listen, you need to come over to Kensington and see the place and see the people. And I think he really just wanted me to come stay there. But I'm I got it sweet in the shelter that I'm in at the time, right? It's just one of those moments where my life isn't complete shit. So I'm just no, I'm good, but so he brought me over to Kensington. As soon as I get into the building, there's this clubhouse in Kensington. There's way more people there. This was like a way bigger place, like a bigger clubhouse. And then there were like also like 5 recovery houses on that block or whatever that he had, like women's, men's, workhouse, all this other stuff. So,
Well, he was living at Graffiti Pier. He's living down at the pier, but he has all these houses.
well, so that was later. At the time, he was just staying in like a little like makeshift room. Behind the houses,
Right.
on Lee Street. So, yeah, just, you know what I mean, like typical.
Playing his guitar.
Yeah, right. So, yeah. So as soon as I walk into this place, I see this guy that I used to run the streets with, and the last time I saw him, we were like stealing and panhandling and went and like, you know, shooting dope behind a dumpster in Center City somewhere and just like all this crazy stuff. And then I saw him and he's like, yeah, like I've been here for 5 months. Like I'm sober. I'm actually moving out tomorrow. I got my own apartment and all this. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. Because we were just on the street. Like that's crazy. You know, so like that was one of those moments I was like, okay, that's something to think about, you know?
Yeah.
And that was like the beginning of that. Obviously, I went back out, ran for a while, did whatever I did, but like eventually, you know, I came back to the Camden Clubhouse and then was brought over to Kensington. So
That's awesome, though.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. Like, what an inspiration that is to like see somebody that you're on the streets with just recently, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden now they're getting their own place.
yeah, and I was just like, how do you do that? How does that happen?
And the last stop, let's face it, Eddie Z does amazing things for the community.
Sure.
He does amazing things for the recovery community. He is unconventional.
Very extremely unconventional.
I'm going to say it. Nobody else has ever said this to me. I say it all the time. He's almost like a cult-like following, but not a cult. Does that make sense?
I mean, I wouldn't disagree. I wouldn't, you know.
You know what I mean by that,
Yeah.
though?
Yeah.
He's not a cult leader,
Yeah.
but it's like a following like that. But
Yeah.
it's not. It's a movement. It's
Yes.
a movement of people who needed somebody to just say, "I believe in you," but yet I'm not going to cater to you.
Yeah.
You're going to have to do this on your own.
Yep.
So Eddie has done things like, you come here, you know how it's going to work? You're going to sleep on this floor.
Yeah.
And that's how you're going to get yourself clean and sober.
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. And I slept on the floor.
Pillow?
Maybe not the first night. I don't know. Maybe there,
So you slept on the floor. You were one of the people who slept on the floor.
Yeah, I slept
Of the
on the
last
floor.
stop.
Yep.
Was it a redone floor? Was it the dirt floor, gravelly floor?
It was not a dirt floor. So this was in the clubhouse.
In the clubhouse.
Yeah,
Okay.
so this was in the clubhouse. I believe back in the day, the men's house was the basement of the men's house was unfinished.
Yes.
And and they just built beds there.
Yep.
Because we want people to have somewhere to go. So that's whatever. But I mean, by the time I got there, the basement was finished though. And I slept in there too.
So how long did you sleep on the floor in the last stop?
A few weeks before I got moved down to the men's house.
So was that your treatment facility?
That was it.
So you didn't go to like one of these Kirkbrides or Eaglevilles or
No.
any of these Keystones, none of that shit.
And like and it's not even like it wasn't even like a choice thing. So one time when I was like 20, I went to a detox, and then I never went to another treatment center again until I was like 27. I went up to North Jersey for like 30 days. So I can't even remember the place, but and that was it. That's all the treatment centers that I ever did. All that time in between, I just got high, and like that was it. And whatever happened, happened. And so so when I went to the last stop, like that was it. That was my treatment center. Yeah.
It's admirable. That's not an easy thing to do sometimes.
It's not, but I was just in a spot where I was so so I remember I had just gotten out of jail, and I went back to the streets.
Anything in particular? The usual boosting?
I
Probation violations? One of the many?
I couldn't just some dumb shit like that. Yeah, for
You're
sure.
a badass, Chris Willis. You were a badass.
Yeah, I'm horrible. Yeah. But I got out of jail. I ran the streets for like a couple weeks, and it was just like the worst little run or period of time that I ever had. And I was really tired, and I didn't have like my ID and my social security card anymore, and I couldn't remember if the the state health insurance was like still activated or not. And like, I just like literally just gave up and was like, I'm just going to walk down in this place and see what happens. And that was that.
And that was it.
And that was it. Yeah. Like if I had known, like if I had had my ID or I knew what was up with my health insurance or whatever, like I might have done something different, but yeah, it's just not what happened. So
it's amazing how like all these people go to treatment over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And the system fails them, I feel.
Yeah.
And you know, and it doesn't work for them. But yet there's all these people that you know and that I know that have gone through this program called The Last Stop, where they have succeeded and continue to, and they become this little army of friends that you're not all hanging out together, but there's that connection.
Yeah, no, there's a connection there for sure.
You know, it's just almost like you should have a secret handshake for The Last Stop.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
it's one of those, and it's pretty cool because he helps so many people stay alive. For
sure.
And that was 10 years ago almost for you.
And that was, it was 10 years ago almost that I walked in. Yeah.
So in those, first of all, what made you, once you got into recovery, what made you want to start recovery homes? Because number one, they're a pain in the ass.
I
know this because
I got headaches. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to like, all right, so I get into The Last Stop, right? And I got nothing going on. Like I got no skills. I have nothing. Right. And, so I start working for Eddie Z because he's always got something going on. Like at the time anyway, he was always like, buying a house in Camden and like, you know what I mean? Just rebuilding the whole house or like whatever. And, he always had these little projects going on. So like one day, some dude, I guess, who was working for him, like comes around the corner to the men's house and is like, hey, who has a license? And I was like, I got one. And I did not have a license. So it was for sure suspended. But I was like, I got one. In my mind, I'm just thinking like, hey man, I'm going to get out of here for a couple minutes. We're going to go to the store or something. And he was like, okay.
Spoken like a true addict.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I can't sit still. You know what I mean? I only got a couple weeks sober or whatever. So he's like, all right, you come with me. You're working with us. I'm like, okay, cool. And then like through that, like I ended up becoming the guy who would like drive all these guys to whatever job he had going on, building this new house in Camden or whatever. And, some of these guys were super talented carpenters, plumbers, whatever. And I learned all this stuff from them. And then I also saw what like Eddie was doing with the buildings and the houses. And like, then I knew I was like, okay, like I for sure want to be in construction probably. And like real estate somehow is the thing. And then like, if I can use some of that to like help people also this way, then like that would be cool. But like, we'll just start, we'll start with like kind of learning these skills and see where it goes. So then I don't know, 3 years later, just randomly, a couple friends of mine were just like, hey, we're opening a recovery house. And I was like, okay, I'll manage it for you. And then that was it. That was how it started. It's weird because it's like I felt that from the beginning, you know what I mean? And like sometimes I would make these moves like when they said they were opening the recovery house and I was like, I'll manage it for you. Like I'll move in there or whatever. Like people who were in recovery were like questioning me and like laughing at me because they're like, oh no, like you got this career. I just started in the like cell tower industry at the time. Like, oh, like you got this career, you got, your own apartment, da, da, da. Like why you want to move into this house and all that. And like in my mind, I'm just like, I got a plan. Like I know exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly where I'm going to be in 5 years. Like, don't tell, like you can't. I can do whatever I want. Like
right.
you can't. So just stick to you. You know what I mean? And and I did it.
So now you're 10 years in recovery. You have 8 homes. You're actually living in one of the homes, one of your first homes, correct?
It's like it's like the 4th one I think that I got.
It's in your set of them.
Yeah,
you do sell. What do you do there? Tell me. Like, do you climb these towers, man?
I used to, yeah. If you can go to my Facebook or my Instagram, you can see pictures of me.
Which
climbing
is
cell towers.
what? How can they find you on Facebook or Instagram?
Oh, good question.
Yes, you have Restore and Recover for Instagram.
Yeah, so Restore and Recover. Yeah, look up Restore and Recover. Look up Christopher Willis. They're public. You'll see me.
But you climbed cell towers.
So I did. So I'm still in the cell tower industry, but I'm a construction manager now. But yeah, I started out climbing towers. Yeah.
I just got anxiety. Think about that. Like I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, let me hold on to something because number one, I have a fear of heights.
Yeah.
I am terrified of heights. Like
Yeah.
the thought of it. Like I see commercials or I see these reels of people doing these things, and like I had to turn them off because I get anxiety so quickly.
Right.
So, and you're talking about the towers, the big cell towers with the flashing lights on
Yep.
and all that crap.
Yeah,
you
those.
climb those suckers
I climbed them. Yeah.
from the ground up. There's not an elevator or anything like
No.
that. There's a ladder.
No, there's not anything.
Oh,
Back in the day, every once in a while, maybe once every 10 or 20 sites, we might have a crane on site and be able to take a man basket up there. But no, yeah, you're pretty much on the tower just climbing.
How high are those things, man?
So for cell service, they could be anything from like 50 feet to 400 feet.
What's the highest you ever climbed? Do you know?
Probably about 350.
Is that like the top of it? Does it sway?
Yeah, they sway. They move.
You're right.
Yeah.
And you're hooked in, right? You're latched in, like you're hard.
Yeah, you're like
Do you feel safe?
you're tied off. I mean, so yeah, not in the
It was a
beginning.
yes or no answer, so
Not
you
in-
don't feel safe.
It took time. It
Okay,
took time.
all
Like
right.
when everyone's like, "Oh, I'm afraid of heights." Like, yeah, dude. The first time I climbed, I was like, "This is crazy. I don't know if I'm going to keep doing this." You know what I mean? But I did, and I eventually got to a point where I was comfortable with it. But yeah, the first time that I was on a tower by myself, and like the wind was blowing like it is today. Yeah, like the wind started blowing and I just laid down on the platform. I was like, this is crazy. What is happening? I didn't know towers could move that much, but you know, I got over it. It took a while.
How long does it take to climb?
It depends. I mean, when I was like, let me see, to like toward the end when I was like really, you know, like every day climbing or whatever. I don't know, a few minutes, a couple minutes.
Did you go from like clutching the climb to like now you just sort of just do it?
Yeah, that's it. So that's exactly
You were sort of
what
like one of
happens.
those persons like,
No, yeah. The first time I climbed,
Yeah.
the first time I ever climbed, when I got done, I had bruises on my forearms from, you know, gripping the ladder.
I bet you did.
Yeah.
I bet I'd be
Yeah.
crying as I was 10 feet up, you know?
Yeah.
That's enough for me. So when was the last time you climbed the tower?
I don't know, a few years ago now.
Okay.
So, you know, I was a tower climber, and then I was like what they call a top hand in the industry, which is like the lead guy up top. And then I was a foreman, and now I'm a construction manager. So
So you like manage the whole thing. You're like the project manager sort of in that order.
yeah, so right. So I work with the project manager who, you know, is like a remote person who, you know, kind of like manages all the whatever. And, you know, I do a little bit of that and also go around to all the crews that we have in the market and check their safety and make sure they have their materials. And
So you went through how many years of active addiction from beginning to the end?
10 to 15.
So you went from that to living on the streets and abandonments and
Yeah.
sort of just getting by, you know, in jail and, you know, doing whatever drugs you could find, you know, sleeping on a floor in the last stop to, in the last 10 years, building yourself really an empire for yourself.
I mean, it's, you know, I mean, if that's, you know, you could call it that, I guess, if you want to.
It's
but-
your life. Your life is your empire,
I
brother.
mean, listen, like obviously, like it's more than I ever, you know, imagined. Like,
You had the card. Anybody in this, the cards are stacked against us.
100%. Yeah.
You know, the chances that somebody that has gone as far as we have into an active addiction to come back out and make it are slim.
They're slim.
We don't have an average that's
Yeah.
our success rate isn't that successful.
It's not good. And I would say even less today.
It is, especially since out there now are not the drugs that we're used to.
Yeah.
We did the real drugs.
Yeah.
We got out of it when fentanyl started coming
Yeah.
in and everything, and now all these other synthetic shit and
Yeah.
stuff that's killing us. But like, you really have built a life for yourself.
Yeah.
So recovery is possible.
Yeah, for sure.
It
Recovery
is
possible.
but
yeah.
you have to work a program. Do you still have to do meetings still?
I do. I go to meetings, and I do meetings, but like I do other things also. And like I also listen, there are many paths to recovery, right? Like everyone always says, like, if just going to meetings works for you, go ahead. You know what I mean? If if meetings don't work for you at all, cool. Like, so I don't like subscribe to one thing, but like the network that I've built over, the past 10 years is, a lot of those people are still in meetings. I go to meetings. So it's a big
So you've
part
worked
of
the
my life.
steps.
I have worked the steps. Yeah. Yeah.
They're pretty painful.
I don't disagree.
I don't think people understand the pain involved with that, because they think, oh, you go, it's easy. You could stop. And then you do this, and then you go into meetings, and then you work these steps, and that's, a piece of cake. And
Yeah.
those steps are brutal, man, because those steps really, you take a self-inventory
Yeah.
that you've never done before, and it's really more emotional than anything.
Yeah.
And that's where the brutality of it all comes in.
Yep.
How do you find those steps? Were they brutal for you? Were they easy?
I mean,
did it help you?
Yeah, no, for sure helped me. Because you can't just go through, and this is like not me saying like everyone should get involved in like 12-step or like anything like that, but there are some basic things within the 12 steps that like could help anyone.
Okay.
And like you can't just go through your entire life and just kind of like be the same person and not like look at it. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what the steps are, right? It's like you're taking a look at yourself, saying, okay, you know what I mean? This could change, that could change. I was probably wrong for that, et cetera, et cetera. And then like doing whatever work you need to do to fix those things. And obviously, with some people, there might be other factors. There might be mental illness. There might be, everybody has different circumstances. But, I think trying to take a look, inside in yourself and take some responsibility for something is, a good step toward any type of recovery.
You hit it right there. It's funny because the 12 steps, they were developed for Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yes.
They were
originally. Yeah.
Originally.
Yeah.
The 12 steps aren't just for people who are going through recovery or going into recovery or coming out of a active substance use disorder. Anybody could work those 12 steps. And I would highly encourage people to try to do that.
And here's the thing is like, people have their thing. Well, I'm not into the 12 steps because like, I'm not religious or I don't believe in God or I don't.
The big book.
Okay. That's it. That's cool. Yeah. I don't want to be, or like, I don't subscribe to the threefold disease thing or I don't.
Right.
Okay. Like that's cool. But it's not gonna hurt you to make amends to maybe some of the people you fucked over. It's not going to hurt.
Because everybody's fucked over people in their lives.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to hurt you to do that. It's not going to hurt you to, you know what I mean? In some cases, not in all cases, there are some people that, you know what I mean? I probably deserved what they got. But like, there are some things in there that like, you know what I mean? Are just generally good.
Well, you know what? Some bridges are meant to be burnt.
I agree with that.
Because you don't want to cross some of those bridges again. And that's a great way of doing it.
Yeah.
Burn that bridge. You never have to worry about it again.
Right.
And that's cool. But there's a lot of them that shouldn't have been. And
There's plenty.
People have written that off, whether you are going through something with an addiction or not. You are just a normie or somebody who can have a drink and recreational use. There are amends that could be made.
Yeah.
There's a personal self-inventory that everybody can take and reflect upon your soul and who you are and how you got to where you are.
Yeah.
And are you okay with that?
Yeah.
And That's what we have to look at. Like, are we okay with laying our heads down at night and being okay with that?
Exactly.
Did you do everything you could have done the right way?
Yeah, that's the thing.
And that's what the 12 steps are.
Yeah.
Taking that self-inventory to understand, did you do it the right way?
Yeah, and just checking yourself.
Yep. Because I'm not religious.
Yeah, me neither. Neither am I.
I'm not one of those like, oh, like, hey, great. I know it helps so many people.
Yeah.
The prayer, God, the belief, and it helps so many people in recovery. It's huge in recovery, the Christianity and the,
it's big. Yeah.
the religion. It's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it
I'm
makes
not
it
one
easy.
of those.
Me neither.
Spiritual, yes,
Okay. Yeah.
but in a different sense.
Yeah.
It's helped a lot of people. And I think that scares some people too. I think it really does.
Yeah.
It scared me when I used to go to meetings a lot because they started talking about God and all that stuff. And I'm like,
and that's, like we live in a place where, it's big, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we have a lot of Christians in the United States, and we also live in a place where a lot of people have had a bad experience with Christianity or, whatever, Catholicism, whatever it is. So yeah, like I get it. You know what I mean? And like I said, like I'm not encouraging anybody to do anything, or saying that whatever worked for me will work for you. But yeah, you can make amends. You can help other people. You can, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Pay back the money you owe. You can do, whatever, all that stuff. You can do that, right? To just say, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater or whatever that saying is.
I like that you said, pay people back the money that you owe because like going in my active addiction, I'm probably owed so many people and I probably still do.
Yeah.
But like today it like hangs over me if I owe somebody even like $10.
Yeah.
Like that really bothers me.
Yeah.
Because I used to remember what it was like when the dealers were like reaching out like, you owe me. And like, oh my gosh,
Yep.
So like, and it's funny you said that because I think for people that have always, anybody who's had an active, addiction of some type, or substance use disorder of some type, they can relate to that.
For sure.
Money owed. And
sure.
That's a huge thing, and I think that's why a lot of us become entrepreneurs because we want to build ourselves. We don't want to build ourselves off of anybody else because we did that our whole time in addiction.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And that's why I think that we make the best entrepreneurs because we know what's up,
Yep.
Plus we also know how to like hustle and boost. So,
That's the thing too, is like, we're
hustlers.
Yeah. We're generally hustlers. Yeah. And it's just cause like you couldn't make, one hustle work while you were high doesn't mean, you know what I mean? Like you have the skills that you have still. So
that reminds me of that one guy who that robbed banks, and he said, "I was a really good bank robber." I'm like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, and then I was in jail. I'm like, "What are you in jail for?" "Oh, for robbing banks." I'm like, "You couldn't have been that good. You got caught."
Yeah, you weren't.
You're always going to get caught, but it's a skill set.
Yeah. I mean, it's for sure.
Yeah. So, but I think about that. Like we thought we were good. We're legends in our own mind a lot in that. And you said something that a lot of people don't touch on when we talk about addiction. When we talk about addiction, we talk about the trauma. We talk about what happened to us. We talked about, all the horrors, but nobody talks about the mental health. And you said that. Yeah. You said the issues that go along with that. And people forget that there is a dual aspect to addiction, and that comes with that mental health.
Yeah.
And, people don't want to talk about it because it's a stigma.
Yeah.
But you were very free to say that.
It's another stigma. And it's like, it's a big deal, right? Because everyone's not going to have the same experience in addiction or in recovery. Everyone's different. And some people just have the mental health issues. And that's, that's going to be a big thing, right? Like you can't just walk into say, some, abstinence-based recovery program, right? And like be off your meds or whatever the situation is and think that you're going to you're not going to recover. It's going to be bad.
Well, it's going to be real bad.
And
stay on your meds, people.
Yeah. And like I met like a lot of people, like I remember being on the street, like there's a lot of people who are like schizophrenic or something, and they're just getting high to like not have voices in their head.
To maintain.
Yeah, to maintain, because, and because they don't feel like they can live a normal life on like whatever medications are available. you know, which, you know, I've seen people on those medications. Sometimes they're like, it's like, yeah, you're not really here.
No.
You know what I mean? But some people need to be on them, and some people are going to continue to use no matter what, because that's the way that they like to deal with whatever they have going on. So, yeah, it's a thing.
You know, we you know, everybody talks about, you know, recovery, and it's funny because it's almost become like one of those, you know, us and they things, when it's like a we thing. It really should be one of those. And
100%.
in recovery, there is divisions. There's divisions between the AAs, the NAs.
Yeah.
You know, you go to AA, you know, I'm an alcoholic, you know, but there's a lot of people in AA that were, you know, heroin users, and
Yeah, especially
you know,
here.
Yeah.
Literally almost
everyone.
Yeah.
And they don't want to go to NA because they don't like sometimes the stigma behind that or what they found there. And, you know, we look at that, and, you know, we look at divisions, and we look at the fact that even like in the recovery world, you know, I look at treatment centers nowadays, and I look at some of them as being, you know, they're businesses. Of course they're businesses.
Yeah.
You know, but I look at the people then that do harm reduction on the streets like myself and stuff, and there's a division there between the recovery and that. And
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't change. You know, no matter where you are, though, it doesn't change. How do you balance that? Because you do both. You do harm reduction because you help out with that.
For sure.
You do the treatment because you have sober living, and you yourself are sober, and you yourself have strong opinions against the harm reduction that's done on the streets.
I do. I have strong opinions about some of the harm reduction that's done. But like, and everyone in any of my friends, anyone who knows me in any 12-step program knows that, like, I have never advocated for anything but the legalization of all substances, period. Because, you know, and then I'm not going to get crazy political and get into the war on drugs and the prison industrial complex and all that. But like, I have very strong opinions about that. And yeah, I've never been anything other than a harm reductionist, and I've never like hidden that from anyone in any room, AA, NA, wherever. So like, anyone who knows me knows that. But you know, you have some harm reduction organizations in the streets that are, you know, whatever. They've been accused of like many things, but like also they're like bashing all these like other people, and, you know, people who have different opinions, and they're bashing 12-step programs, and they're, you know what I mean, and kind of trying to position themselves as like up here, like they're somebody or whatever. And like, meanwhile, they're taking money from the people who make the laws that are causing this shit. So what are we talking about? You know? So like, yeah, like I have opinions, you know what I mean?
Well, because it's organizations like that organization that you're referring to or talking about, or in general, or whatever, that give other organizations a bad name, or give the whole harm reduction, you know, genre, you know, a bad name, because that's what they associate it with. Yeah. You know, and are you doing more harm than you are doing good with harm reduction? Yeah. And, you know, so you got to find that balance, and you have to have a stance, and you got to know that stance like you do. And you want to be able to build the bridges and not the walls.
That's my thing too, is like, I think that we should be building bridges. Like, you know, let's just say someone in harm reduction is just like railing against 12-step programs, and like, or AA specifically, and like the idea of like the threefold disease, right? It's like, okay, like that's cool, but like there are lots of people in AA or NA or whatever who can understand the concept of addiction happening on a spectrum, right? Like, but instead, these people who consider themselves like the greatest harm reductionists ever are just putting all these people in a basket and saying they're stupid, right? They're stupid, they're ignorant, they need to learn, they can't get it, they're causing harm, blah, 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 whatever. And it's like, no, dude, like people in AA can understand that. And just because they, you know, pray to a God at night or whatever it is that some people do, you're not better than them. You're not, you know what I mean? And here's the thing is like, these 12-step programs are not going anywhere. So like, being mad at it is not like, it's not helping. You're just, you know what I mean? You're just causing division, right? When you could be creating an environment in 12-step programs that helps more people than it already does.
Use your voice and platform for good.
Yeah, that's it.
Don't use it for yourself. Don't use it as a photo op.
That's
Don't use it as a likes and clicks bait sort of thing.
Yeah. And
know.
that too, and also the weird like positioning, right? You're not a teacher, you're not an authority, you're literally nobody. We're either here to help people or not. Like, end of story.
And we're in it together.
Yeah.
We can have our different opinions, and we do.
Yeah.
You know, we look at things differently in that aspect too. And you know, years ago, you know, it was called NA or AA or CA or SA, and that A was always anonymous.
Yes.
Because we were always told to be ashamed of it, or we were told to hide the stigma because people wouldn't accept it.
Yep.
It would harm us in the workforce. It would harm us in the real world.
Yep.
People look differently. That's not so much anymore. People are recovering out loud like us. Like, we don't have a problem talking about it.
For sure.
You know, and it's there, and it's going to be there. We need those voices, but we got to be raising them in the right way.
Yeah.
You know, you talked about the war on drugs, and real briefly you said, you know, it's about the legalization of all drugs.
Yeah.
Do you think if that were ever to occur, that there was the war on drugs would finally legalize all drugs, or would be monitoring of all of them? Do you think that would affect your sobriety?
No, because I can buy anything I want right now. I could go order real heroin on the internet right now and have it delivered to my door. So why would that affect my sobriety? You know what I mean? Like, I live, right around the corner. Like, and
so here we are talking about a disease that is classified as a disease.
Sure.
That if you work it, it does become a choice of doing it or not doing it.
At some point.
At some point. But do you believe it's a disease or a choice in the end?
You know what, man? Like, that's a good question. But that goes back to, addiction being something that happens on a spectrum, right? So for some people, it's probably not. Some people probably use so much that that's it. Like, their brain has been rewired, and it won't. You know what I mean? There's no amount of work that can change that. Maybe. I don't know.
Do you have to work your recovery every day, Chris?
Yeah. I mean, I have to. Yeah, of course I have to. Like, there has to be, I think you have to maintain a level of self-awareness, and the work, like whatever the work is for you or for me, like, the work is what helps you do that.
Right.
Right. Because then when I start losing, like, whatever that level of self-awareness, like, then I start, like, kind of going back to my old ways and just kind of being like a person that I don't want to be. You know what I mean? And then, whatever. One day of fuck it turns into another day of, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, it has to be every day.
There are so many people. I mean, you said it, you live on Allegheny right now. You're right there in the heart of it. You see it. We drive through it on a daily basis. We are two living examples that recovery is possible. Yeah. Especially for sometimes two degenerates like us. Sorry, I'm going to classify you in that area.
No, that's fine. I don't care.
We've been friends long enough for me to say that.
Yeah, like, that's fine. I mean,
but we're not that person anymore.
No.
And it is possible. So to that person that's out there, to that person that is on that street corner, to that person that we drive by and we see them crying, or they look at us and we know that pain, what words do you have for them?
Like, you could turn anything around, like, that's really it. Like, you don't know that when you're in that spot. There's no way to know that. And it sounds crazy if somebody says it to you, but it's literally true. You know what I mean? Like, you can turn anything around. And, like, that's the main thing that you have to know. Like, whatever it is that you're, like, afraid of, right? Like, all these things that you have to deal with in real life. Like, for me, if I'm in my addiction, on the street, homeless or whatever, I probably got warrants in however many different counties. I don't want to withdraw. You know what I mean? Today, I got to steal this, and that. I got to rob that person. Whatever it is, family members don't want to talk to you, whatever. Right. So you have like all these things going on in your head, and you just want to get high to not deal with it. Right. You just want to be like obliterated, but like just believe for 1 second that you can literally turn all that around.
Through all what you were just saying there, you were just describing your entire journey. Everything you just described, like you could do this, you could do that, from robbing, from boosting, from this to this to this.
Yeah.
You just described your whole life.
Your
journey.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Pretty much is what you did.
Essentially.
You broke it down. So basically, what you're doing is you're telling people that this is who I was, this is what I went through, this is who I am now and where I'm at. So you're giving them hope.
Yeah.
And it's essentially what we do in recovery is we give people hope.
That's literally it. Just if you want what we got, do what we do, or if whatever other sayings there are out there.
You were living on the streets in abandonments. You were shooting up. You were doing this. You were doing that. You were boosting. You were doing what you had to do to survive. And you have 8 homes right now, recovery homes that you're helping. You're not just owning a recovery home because it's not own ownership. You are helping people with their lives in recovery. You're giving them a chance. Yeah. Something that most people didn't give to us.
That's what we do. Yeah, we give people a chance, and like that's why, our program in particular, like we do, like I said over in Germantown, like we do take people from a treatment center sometimes, but like we will also take, anyone who we think we can help, whether they have ID or money or insurance or whatever, like none of that shit matters, right? Because that's literally what was done for me. Like I just walked into a place and they were like, all right, we'll give you a shot.
Because if you don't give that person a shot, how are they going to get their ID? How are they going to get their money?
How?
They can't. So you've got to give them that. So you give them that hope. You give them that chance. Yeah. You do what people didn't do for you, but then there was somebody who did for you that came along.
There was somebody, who, and by the way, for anyone who's interested, that's low barrier housing. That's the actual definition. I don't know what all these other programs are talking about. They don't offer low barrier housing. We do. The Last Stop did back in the day. And
explain low barrier, because that's something that some people don't get.
So it just means there's nothing in your way to getting in, right? There are some shelters where it's like, well, you need an ID and you need a referral from social services and you need
You need a letter.
Yeah, you need a letter, or you need this, whatever. And then with rehabs, it's like you need this insurance, or you have to be referred from this place or whatever. And we're just like, yeah, whatever, man, just call us up. And, we'll see what you got going on.
And I can attest to that because I have done it many times. I have seen on the boards out there somebody who is in need of housing, and I reach out to Chris and I say, Chris, and he says, send them my way. Yeah. And I do, and they get it. And I've met some of them too in the end. I met some of them that needed it. And it's a really rewarding thing to know in the end. And I think that's another thing that keeps people like yourself on that straight and narrow and that path, because now you're not just really looking out for yourself. You have 8 houses full of people that you're looking out after, and they're looking to you for that guidance.
Sure.
So you are a role model to all those people.
I mean, I try, like I don't know what the standard is. I don't know what, what I mean? But like, I just do what I was taught and what, I
don't think there is a standard, man. I think there is no standard. I think it's really just, what you do that others can pick pieces from and say, what, I want to be like that. I want to do that. I want to remember this. And there is no standard. It's really just what you exude. It's what you put out. Yeah. And that's really important. So, you do all this stuff. You work, you climb these towers, or you used to. You do that full time. You run their homes. What do you do for yourself?
What do I do for myself?
What's a self-care thing in Chris Willis' world?
That's a good question. Well,
you said smoking cigars at the Turkish bath or something.
No, we do. So we, once in a while, like me and some guys will, we'll go do that. We'll have a cigar.
It's a fellowship.
We'll go to, for sure. And like recently, I'm just getting back into making music. you know, and like the past, I don't know, 6-8 months or whatever, like I just got into like, you know, videography and photography. So like I'm, you know, kind of playing with that and like trying to like use it for the business a little bit. So yeah, you know, I do some stuff. Yeah.
Nice. It's always important to have those outlets.
Yeah.
And yes, he's done a video for Philly Unknown for us when we went to DopeyCon,
Yep.
one of the events that we attend every year that we went to 2 years in a row now,
Yep.
which has been a killer. You are out there doing what you got to do. You have so much going on. If people need a place, reach out to Chris Willis at Restore and Recover. You can find that on Instagram. Are you on Facebook with that too?
Instagram, Facebook, X. What?
Oh, you're on X too?
Literally whatever. Or restorerecover.com. And as a
There
matter
you
of
go.
fact, yeah, and you know, you can just fill out the little form and we'll just, yeah, whatever. Yeah.
You get to the help.
Yep.
It's important to know. Chris, it's really important that you know that I appreciate you sharing your story. I appreciate all you've done for me. You've been very helpful to me over the years.
You've been helpful to me, man.
It works both ways. It's the only way we can get this thing done, you know? Only way we can survive. Without that, we might be back there on those streets, you know?
Yeah.
And we need that in our world. So, but, you know, I want people to know that there is hope. You know, there is chances. You know, people like Chris, like myself, that have been to the bottoms that people call, or the endless bottoms, or the pits that we keep falling down to pull ourselves out and to be where we're at. You know, that's amazing. So, you know, check them out. Check Chris Willis out on social media, Restore and Recover. Thanks for joining me today, man.
Thank you.
Remember, everybody, whatever it is you stand for, be a voice. This is Brick Carpenter on Usula Media. Have a great rest of your day.